views expressed on this program are those of the producers and individuals appearing on this program and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Sun Prairie Media Center staff, its video service providers, or the staff and elected officials of the City of Sun Prairie.
Welcome to Moments of Strength. I'm your host, Mary Kaufman. In this show, we dive deep into the lives of mothers' unique journeys of parenting and personal growth. From juggling family dynamics to personal passions and career ambitions, we'll talk about challenges, triumphs, and pivotal moments that shape their lives, emphasizing the resilience and strength that comes with motherhood. Thank you for joining us. Today's guest is Lorie. Hi, Lorie.
Hi.
Thank you for coming on.
You're welcome.
I appreciate you joining us for the 11th episode. This is very exciting.
Yes, it is.
Well, I always think it's so brave to come on and share stories, you know, for people to take some lesson from and to learn more about you. And I just really appreciate it. So thank you.
You're welcome.
And you and I mean, we've known each other for a while, but I haven't seen you in person for a long time. We used to see each other more before COVID when, you know, the events were plenty. I think that's really how we met. And I'll tell you, the first time I met you, I was really just drawn to your upbeat personality.
Oh,
and you had
you.
so much energy, and that was just really fun to be around. So I'm excited to have you on.
Thank you. It was here at the library, actually.
Oh, so
it was one of the fundraisers we had for
that's
the
right.
library. That's when I first met you.
That is right. So fitting that we're back here. So
Yeah.
so the show really is aimed at supporting mothers in their journeys. And we all know we don't just go through motherhood. You know, we have personal ambitions and goals and challenges. And really the platform of the show is to provide opportunity for moms to share their experiences so that other parents don't feel alone in their journey. So over the next hour or so, we'll talk about your childhood, whatever you want to share about that. That's almost always connected to how people are when they're adults. So we like to have a little backstory. And then we'll talk about the paths you took as an adult. And before we wrap up, just an opportunity to offer any wisdom or insights that maybe we didn't get a chance to cover.
Perfect. I think what you're doing is wonderful.
Oh, thanks,
Because
Lorie.
all mothers need help. We
I
all
agree.
go through things, and we think we're alone, and yet we're not.
We are not. There's so many, and have been so many. So lots of lessons learned, and if that can make somebody's journey a little easier, then
Amen.
hopefully that's what
Yes.
this does. So,
Yep.
so tell us a little bit about yourself, and you know, give us a little bit of background to your life.
Okay. I grew up in New Jersey, which if you heard me say hot dog or chocolate, you would know that. But I grew up in New Jersey. It was my mother, my father, I have a brother, Jeffrey, and myself. And life was pretty good until I was about 13, and then my parents got divorced.
Okay.
And divorce is never a good thing, and I know people go through it, but it was, in our case, it was really, really rough. And so that meant that we didn't have a lot of money for college or for anything else. And I had been a good student because for me, school gave me structure.
Okay.
And
yes.
that really helped me because home was chaos, so I needed the structure. And so I went to college. I got a scholarship from the College Women's Club, and I went to college. I started at Cedar Crest, and I was going to be a nurse. I was going to be in the first BSRN class. I had come from a very competitive co-ed high school in Westfield, and then this was an all-women's college, and it was not, I was not comfortable there, let's just put it that way.
Okay.
So my father was living with his new wife in Toledo, so he said, why don't you transfer to Ohio State, because we could get in-state tuition, would make it a little bit less expensive. So I transferred to Ohio State. I wanted to go in their nursing program, but I didn't have one English class, which is so silly, I think. So they wouldn't admit me to the nursing class, their nursing school, and later I got an A in that English, which was so silly. So I had to change my major. So I decided that I would be a biochemistry major, which was not very popular with I was in a sorority. My father said I had to go to one to encourage me because Ohio State had 50,000 students and it was huge and I knew nobody. So I wasn't very good in the sorority either because I was a biochemistry major, and as soon as somebody from a fraternity house would say, well, so what's your major? And I'd say biochemistry, and they're like, see ya. And so anyway, I spent a lot of time studying in the stacks at night, and they didn't graduate very many. But my choice of biochemistry was I could go many, many different ways.
Right.
I could teach, I could go to medical school, I could become a researcher. There were a lot of options.
Sure.
So I'm really big on options. That's my thing. I tell all the kids when I talk to them in different venues here in Sun Prairie is keep your options open. So I decided I was in the I was actually president of the Biological Honor Society, and I interviewed on campus, and I did a summer school stint. My dad's company at the time hired some of their kids, if you will, to work.
Okay.
And I thought I was going to be in R&D, research and development.
Oh, sure.
Well, I spent 2 summers doing that, and I hated it. It was just not for me.
No.
So then I decided I was going to go into business. So I interviewed. Back then, you could interview on campus. I got hired by Goodyear, and I started there right after college. I graduated June 9th, and I started June 30th.
Wow.
I had no money. I was sleeping on a cot. I had boxes with my underwear and clothes in it. It was really rough. Yes, but that's okay. So we started there at Goodyear, and I ended up. We were bought and sold twice. I was in sales and marketing then.
Is this in Ohio still?
In Ohio, in Akron.
Okay.
And I was the 3rd woman they hired, and in their sales and marketing for the chemical division.
Okay.
They were looking for chemically degreed people to do sales and marketing. So I was the first woman to go to the field and sell rubber, if you can believe that. And it was very different back then. The salesmen would travel with their wives, and it was just very different. And there were a lot of prejudices against women being in sales and being, part of the chemical industry. Most of my career was in the automotive industry, which is very, very tough. And we were bought and sold twice, and like slaves, right? We had the first one was to Carlyle Private Equity, and then we were sold to Continental. And I had a wonderful career. My jobs throughout the time I was there were I had a lot of travel. I was responsible for a $32 million business. I had teams in Asia, Europe, South America, and North America at the end. So it was a very, very strong career with lots of travel. So I got married. I married my next door neighbor when I was in sales, and we got transferred to Ohio. And no one ever thought I would have any children, okay, because I was a working.
Oh, because you were so busy.
So busy, so working, whatever. And
so we should just say this was at a time when that was a lot because of the era. Everybody didn't have high-powered, or women didn't have high-powered jobs where they traveled and raised children. Not that it didn't happen, it just wasn't common.
It wasn't common. And my first rubber group Christmas party in Boston, there were 3 of us women that were in the industry, and they had a stripper.
Oh my gosh.
That's what they did back then.
Okay, well.
So things were very different back then.
Right.
But anyway, so no one ever thought I would have a child. And David and I were married 7 years before I had my child. Okay. And I got pregnant, and everyone was shocked. And I'm one of the people that I brought my planner to the hospital. Okay, because I had it all how it was going to go, scripted, and everything was going to do. And I should have just thrown the planner away because it didn't work out like that. So it was, I have a wonderful daughter, Kelsey, and she is a joy to me, and I'm so thankful that I had her. But no one expected it. My next door neighbor.
Did you want to have kids?
I did.
Okay, so.
I did.
Yeah. The thought was just maybe that wasn't going to work out because of the career you had. Gotcha.
Yeah, because it was a lot to try to balance all of the travel plus the responsibilities. And back then, we worked long hours, and if they told you to come in on Saturday or you had to, you did. So having a child was a big challenge at that point in time, but that was okay. I was happy that I had her. And we tried to have more after her, but we weren't able to have any more. So she ended up being my one and only. And I was, I brought her to, we got transferred here. I had a bunch of different, I was in Boston, I was in New Jersey again, but we got transferred here to Sun Prairie in 1998. Okay. And at that point, Kelsey was just going into second grade. So she had her second grade all the way through high school here in Sun Prairie. So one of the things that was a wonderful thing about moving to Sun Prairie was it gave me more balance. And that's one of the things in motherhood that I didn't have any balance. I was all about my career back then. I had Kelsey and I was a loving mother to her, but my career meant so much to me back then. And then I ran into a really bad boss, and he was psychotic, and it was not a good situation. So I ended up getting out of that situation and coming here to Sun Prairie. And it was really a blessing because it helped me find balance with motherhood, with my life, doing things, as well as work, because I did not have balance when I was in Ohio. So
I think, I think as mothers, you can be in any environment, and that is an aim to find balance. But interesting that to think, what if he wouldn't have been a bad boss? Your trajectory would have been so different. So he's a bad boss, and that's not a good experience for you, but it led to something better. And so that's another thing I think when we're just in the throes of some difficult situation is it's awful. It's likely temporary, to some degree. I mean, might be a long temporary, but
doesn't feel like it at the time.
No, but can lead to something more positive, as you've just explained.
And it did. It absolutely did. I love Sun Prairie. I am so thankful that we are here because the city, there's so many good people, and if you can't find somebody to help you or something that you want to do, then I think there's something wrong with you because you ask for help, people will help you. This is the most loving, positive community that I have ever lived in, and I've lived a lot of places, but with work and everything else, and I just love living here.
Well, I think too, people feel like if they can't find help, something might be wrong with them, but what we should offer them is just tell somebody something, because somebody here will know somebody else, and not just in this community, and every community isn't like that, but typically, and we've talked about that on this show too, moms want to help other moms, but moms are reluctant to ask for help from other moms, even though they would also help them. So just to reiterate, if you need help with something or you need a resource, or the first step is just say something to someone, and hopefully that can lead to a resource.
Because people will help you. Your neighbors will help you. I did an experiment with Kelsey. She was tired of going to an after-school program, and she wanted to come home. And since I worked only 10 minutes away from our house, I had all the neighbors that I was, and they watched out for her, and they knew she was going to be home alone in an hour, for an hour, and I had her call me at work when she got home from the bus, and we had an experiment where she was able to learn to be at home for an hour, and then I would come home, an hour and a half later or so, and we had people watching out for her. So the neighbors and the community here, you just need to ask people to help you, and they will.
Right, and just to touch on that too, just as a mom, that feeling of your child's getting old enough to do a thing, and it's really hard as the mom to allow them to do the thing because, you worry and you got them to this point and everything's a threat and feels scary, and yet they still need to grow up. And so experimenting, or doing things in short bursts instead of
setting them up for
in.
Success too, because you have a backup situation. You're not just flinging them out there.
Right.
So they have a backup, but they have to grow because it's our job as mothers to raise independent children where they're able to succeed in life. And we have to give them opportunities to try new things and also opportunities to fail. Because if they don't, they're never going to learn.
Do you feel like, you know, you talked a little bit about your experience growing up, and I mean, you were a teenager when this event happened. Do you feel like, to some degree, that put you in a position to be independent, and not that you lived on your own, but, you know, find resources within yourself to be able to do that? And then, do you think that shaped how you view the role of mothers to create independent children? Do you know what I'm saying?
I do. I think that helped, because it could have gone either way. Because it was not very, we didn't have a lot of support. We had my grandmother, but she only came at certain times, and then she was ill and couldn't. And my mom just completely fell apart. So I basically had to cook and, you know, organize, and my brother wasn't a whole lot of help. And so, yeah, it was tough growing up. But I think that gave me strength to get through both the bad boss situation, as well as, you know, some of the countries and things they sent me to. When I was buying natural rubber for Goodyear, I went to the Far East, to Indonesia, and in the town I was in, there was no other white woman in the whole town. I was the only one. So kids were pointing at me and stuff, and so I was in a situation where I didn't really have anybody else that looked like me. So you find that inner strength within to help you get through situations where you're scared. And I credit my problems back then with helping me going forward. And so when I see other mothers struggling and other women struggling, it makes me want to help them, because everybody, the older I get and the more I volunteer, the more I see people are struggling. Everybody's struggling. Nobody has a perfect situation.
No,
they may
exactly
look
right.
like they're perfect and their family's perfect and everything's going their way, but everybody is struggling with something. And the more we see that and recognize that in each other, the more positive and supportive we can be.
And you've really done a lot of that through your volunteering too. And in your work and raising your daughter. But even now, you still are volunteering and supporting people and assisting people. And can you tell us a little bit about what you do with that?
Yeah, I encourage a couple things. When I was with my daughter, I was very busy. I was traveling, like I said, but I wanted to stay connected with my daughter. And my mother would always say, Lorie, can you please say no? And I'd say, no, I can't say no, because the window that we have with our children is only so big. And it's also proven that women, mothers and fathers that are involved in their children, the kids do better. They do better in school, they do better in sports, they do better in everything, because they know that they have the support of their parents. And I encourage people, even if they're super busy with their job, to just do one thing with their kids if they can. That's all the time they have. But to stay involved and connected with their children, and their children will probably fight you on it and say, Mom, you know, you don't have to come to my basketball game, and you know, I don't want you there, whatever. But you need to stay connected with your children, because you only have so many years before there is no more opportunity, and you get no do-overs. You've got to keep staying involved with them, and I did that. My daughter was in Sound of Sun Prairie, so I was super involved. I was chaperone co-chair, and so we slept on the gym floor with 100 kids.
And this is for band?
This was for band who
yeah.
don't know. Yes, it was band, and we would travel, and we'd have competitions, but we'd be on the bus, and then we'd have to make sure everybody was in their own bed, because we didn't want any hanky-panky, because we had children, you know, teenagers and stuff. And so, yeah, it was but it was a super great experience, because I got involved in her life, if you will.
And memorable. You know, it's tied to something that she was interested in doing.
Very interested. And they were great moms. There were band moms, and we all did stuff. We fed them, we clothed them, we rode with them. You know, they would need help, they'd get sick, they'd whatever, and we would be there and help them. So it was a great experience, and it was like a community.
Right.
So it was super great.
And I think that's a good point you make about taking whatever time is available and making that something of impact. And again, you know, some people stay home with their kids and are with them all day, and from their point of view, they need a break. And some parents are working very long hours and don't see their kids, you know, maybe only see them for a minute before they leave in the morning, or maybe they spend weekends with them because that's what's available. But, you know, the greatest human need is to be validated and seen by anyone, but by those that love you. It's so important. And so if you can do that even in small pockets, that means so much to your child.
Makes a huge difference. Absolutely makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
And I now, you know, she was tough when she was 15, and I know, you know, people that have girls, girls get very hormonal and they can be very tough. And when she was 15, she was not a very nice child to be around.
Right.
And we would have moments where everything was great, and then the next thing is everything is a disaster, and there was no event that precipitated it.
Right.
You just went into that. And so we had a rough time. I tell her I would have sold her back then, but then actually I would have given her away. She was so horrible.
Didn't need any money for that.
It was not good, but we got through it. And when she was in college, she basically called me one night, 3 o'clock in the morning. I was sound asleep, and I thought, oh my God, what happened?
Oh,
you
yeah,
know, because you
panic.
get scared. But she said, Mom, she said, I really wasn't very nice to you when I was 15, and I apologize for that because I really love you and I appreciate everything you did for me. And I was like, oh my God, it's 3 o'clock in the morning. I can't absorb this fully.
Right, thanks for taking this exact moment
exactly to tell me. But she did, and now she's 33, and we're very close. We talk quite a bit. I try not to call her too much because I don't want to be one of those moms. Oh God, it's Mom again. You know, I try to balance that, and she calls me and reaches out when she wants advice. And I took her to work when I was here.
Oh, sure.
I would bring her in when I'd have to go in and do some things for whatever it was. And so she would make copies on the copier. And you're doing great job, keep it up. And she put it in all their mailboxes. And they still remember that today.
Yeah.
And I would take her, and she would come to work after she had a cartoon class. And she would come to work and be with me sometimes in the afternoon because work was pretty flexible. I worked over at the plant. And so she got a sense of what a working mother does and what the demands are and so forth. But then I also, you know, was in her life. So I think that helped her when she's now in her career to understand, you know, that there are sacrifices and there are things to do. But she learned a lot of the work ethic from both my husband and I because we both worked really hard. So there's some positive things to being a working mother as well.
Oh, I think so, for sure. Just demonstrating to your children that there's a lot to be done out there, and there are so many different paths to sort of maximizing who you are. And if you're a driven person, I think it's okay to show your kids that, look, this is who I am, this is what I want to pursue. I'm not slighting you in my attempt to do this. You know, that's not my intention. I'm trying to do both. I want you to see that it's okay to want to do both. You know, that might not be their path, but for sure that example. And then that does become part of who you are. You know, what you witness and what is imposed on you when you're young, you cannot escape that it's part of who you are as you get older. And just circling back to talking about, you know, teenagers, I mean, at every age there is something challenging. You
Definitely.
know, and I think it's difficult not to, well, I think a lot of people idealize it. So they'll say, you know, don't blink and this goes fast. That is true. That doesn't mean you have to be super thrilled when your child disagrees, is laying on the floor and you're running out of time because you have to be somewhere. Those are all real feelings. I don't think you should try to put those away and not experience them. But it is important to keep it in perspective because, you know, as your child's throwing a tantrum, as your daughter is 15 and giving you a hard time out of nowhere, you're still on the same team. You know, you still have a responsibility to them, to love them through that. They don't become your enemy because they're going through something difficult, which indirectly makes things difficult for you. I mean, there comes a time when you have to realize, like, however you ended up there, you are in this and you have to commit to it, and your aim has to be good. And if you can keep those things in mind, then when the tantrum is happening, you feel yourself getting riled up. It's like you can have a checkpoint with yourself to say, listen, this is temporary. This fit couldn't, in all human possibility, could not last forever. So what if I just reminded myself of that, didn't become an enemy to my child, didn't think they had something holding out and holding over me and trying to control me. You know, they're 2. Even at 15, they're not fully developed. So again, you as the adult are responsible to set the example. Doesn't matter how mad you are. Doesn't matter that you want to lash out, you think they're your enemy, because guess what? Just as quickly as they ramped up, they're going to come back down and they're going to need you. So I'm glad you brought that up, because I think it's challenging as a parent to be in those moments.
Especially when they push your buttons.
And they know what those are.
And they know what those buttons are, and they push them, and then they're like, well, Mom, you lost it. Well, you pushed all my buttons.
Yes, I'm still losing it. I'm still losing it.
We're only human. We're not super mom. And anybody that thinks that you have to be is crazy, because it doesn't work like that.
No,
but they do push your buttons. But the good thing is that we mothers that have gone through children that have had these issues, we can help other mothers, because I've had a couple of friends of mine that have called and that we've talked, and who seemingly were perfect, and their kid is going through a situation. And because you went through it with your child, you can help other mothers who are going through it with theirs.
For sure. And guess what? You just taught your child that they also can do it, because you didn't fall apart and be a disaster and show them that it's too hard, and it is hard. Again, I'm not trivializing it. It is challenging. But as the mom, that's your role. And whatever example you set for them, that they will remember that. They will become a person like that. So those are important things to. Oh, and on that note too, just talking about having mom friends and wanting to help other moms too, witnessing someone going through that, you don't even really have to know that person. I mean, there have been times in public where you can just see like a mom is struggling, the child's struggling, it's making the mom struggle, there's a public audience. It's really okay to offer help in that situation. And maybe that mom doesn't want you to offer help, or maybe they don't want to take it, but most moms are going to feel like, okay, someone saw me. They recognize this is difficult. I'm having a hard time. That was compassionate of them to offer, even if you don't take the help.
And it doesn't make you a bad mother.
At all.
Because everybody's kid has a meltdown at least about 97
For sure.
times. And whether it's they're on the floor in the restaurant and everyone you know is watching your kid have this meltdown on the floor, or they're 15 and they're talking very nasty to you and they're not being a nice person. Every mother goes through it, and it doesn't make you a bad mother, because kids are just, they're acting out. It's part of being a kid. We did it,
For
and
sure.
our kids do it.
We did do it.
We forget we did it.
But we have to remind ourselves, I was you, And it also doesn't mean you don't set boundaries. It doesn't mean that if your child is freaking out and saying negative things to you, or mean things, or nasty things, or whatever that is, it's okay to have boundaries. It's okay to excuse yourself from the room. It's okay to, not take some sort of, whatever that interaction is. It's okay to have boundaries, but it doesn't mean that person has to be your enemy, And of course there are extreme cases, and we're not going to get into like disclaim, situations.
There's always that, but regular situations, you will have moments where you're just like, this is my child. I created this being, and he or she is being so terrible. But you get through it. I mean, life is a continuum. I say that to everybody. This act does not define the rest of your life. It keeps rolling along, and people are just they don't always understand that, because they're stuck in the moment. They're like, oh my God.
Yeah.
But It is, and it's just the more we recognize that we're all going through the same sort of things, the better human beings we will be, because we have empathy and understanding for other people. And that's a huge thing. It makes all the difference in the world, because at the end of the day, we're all still humans. We're all mothers, we're all struggling, we're all trying to find our way. And even after that, and I was hoping that my daughter would have children too, and so I could be a grandma.
Sure.
So excited about that. She has since informed me that she's not planning on having any children, and probably the most I'm going to get is a granddog or two, which is okay. I mean, it's not what I preferred, and so, but it'll be what it is, and she might change her mind, who knows. But yeah, it is what it is, and you can't control anybody else. You just have to let them be their own person and give them guidance and hope they got something from all the lessons that you taught them, and they're going to find their own way.
Yeah, I think that is so wise, because, well, and I get caught up in that too, you know. I see potential, so I want to feed that or give opportunity for that. And to some degree, kids don't know yet, you know, so it's good to provide different opportunities. I mean, I'm halfway through life, and if opportunity presents itself, I'm always vetting that. Is that something I'm interested in? And so I'm an adult doing that, so I think it's important to offer opportunities to kids, because they don't know what they don't know.
They don't.
And so, and then if they gravitate towards something, to encourage that and foster that. But also, you still might see that they really have the potential to be really good at something else. They just don't have an interest in it, you know. That's rough as a parent, because you have the experience to maybe visually project out what that could look like for them. Also, that's crazy, because you have no idea what those variables are going to be in their life anyway. So, but we get caught up doing that. Well, he's so good at this. He could be, you know, play varsity and then probably goes on a scholarship. And the kid's like, I don't have any interest in that. So. And
you try. I mean, we tried with Kelsey. We tried putting her in sports. She's a disaster in sports. I mean, we were sat on that damn bench for basketball through, I don't know, 13, 14 games, however many they have. They did not win one game, not one game. And she was not very good. She didn't really like it, but she gave it a shot, you know, to try to. And so she learned at that point in time that she's not a basketball player. And she gravitated more towards music and that, which is fine. And she's really, really good at music. But if we hadn't had a disaster with sports, maybe she wouldn't have gone over to music.
Yeah, maybe she wouldn't have learned. And then she would wonder, or you would wonder, or whatever, a missed opportunity. Or so, you know, again, it's important to give those opportunities, but it's equally as important to recognize when that's just not going to be the thing.
And you can't push them. You shouldn't push them. You should give them the opportunity, like you said, maybe give them a little more encouragement. But if they say, Mom, you know, this is really not my thing, then you just got to back off and not keep pushing it, because otherwise they'll hate it. I had a friend who pushed their daughter to be a ballerina, and she went through all this training and everything, and today she's a teacher, because it got to the point where she didn't love it.
It's too much, yeah.
It wasn't her. She was doing it more for her mother than she was doing it for herself. And that's not what we want our kids to do. We're not wanting them to live our life, right?
Right.
And you have 5, God bless you. I only had 1, and I struggled with having 1 to keep all the things moving, you know, the house clean and the food shopping and eat and everything else, and do my job and travel and not wreck my kid. And you got 5 of them. I mean, you're amazing.
Crazy.
You're amazing.
So
People that have multiple children, God bless them.
Well, I think, you know, there's, the upside of having multiple children is, you know, they have each other. So when you have one child, from the perspective of somebody who has multiple children, when you have one, you're always the playmate. That's just my perspective. I haven't been, you know, I don't have any real world experience with that. But then you get to be the playmate. You know what I mean? So the things that we look at that are difficult, or everybody's just having their own experience, you know. I would say, as a mother of a handful of kids, that just what you were saying, all the things you have to do. And actually, that's how I had the idea to come up with that life coaching program, Mentally Tough Mom, because I was at work getting ready to leave one day. I worked full time, and I had at home 4 kids under like 12, I think. And so I worked full time because I needed that for me. And I was getting ready to leave and thinking, now I'm going to work. You know, like, this was fun, this job that I had, but now I'm going to work. And it was all like after school activities and make dinner and baths and all of the things that
Homework.
keep your kids going. Oh my gosh. But I don't know, I loved doing it. And when my kids, you know, got in the car, when I pick them up, since they've been little, I want the full story. You know, I want to hear. I want to know who the characters are in their life. I want to know what the adversity was. And so those moments to me were critical, because sometimes if you get later in the evening, you don't get that fresh, like, they're emoting still about what they experienced. So that takes a lot of work, though, and a lot of sacrifice. And if you want to have a job and do that, you pay in other ways. You know, maybe there's no time to really
read a book or do anything like that you want to do, because there's no more hours left.
No,
you're exhausted.
Yeah, and one of my kids never slept, so I feel like I was awake for a decade. Honestly. And,
well, you don't look like it.
Well,
you still look fabulous.
I'm getting a little more sleep these days.
Good.
I
That's a good thing.
Yeah.
The other thing is the staying involved piece and hearing about their day. A lot of parents, I was SCO treasurer for middle school and high school back in the day, and that was another way to stay connected to what was going on in school.
That's the parent organization for schools.
The parent organization. So I was, and a lot of the parents would think, okay, I got my kid to high school, I'm done. The kids in high school, they're going, and they don't need me. And I'm like, yes, they do, because high school so much. Even with like we had the SEOs for grammar school, which I wasn't involved in, because to me that was more cookies or brownies kind of a thing.
Gotcha.
But in middle school, it was sex or drugs, and that's important when those temptations and things start to come out. And now even earlier kids, you're seeing all these things about guns and 12-year-olds bringing guns to school and all this sort of stuff. It seems like the kids have fast forwarded, and what we used to have in high school, we now have in middle school too.
They have access, to see all of that.
And we have to stay involved with the kid the whole time, even if they're pushing you back, even if they have their own car or whatever. You have to know who their friends are, like you're talking about who else is in their life. You need to know who their friends are, make sure they're safe, make sure they're making good choices, because they don't. I mean, their brains all blah, and they're not necessarily making good choices. And you have to help them make good choices before they make a bad choice that's irrevocable. And that's a very, very tough thing. My niece was addicted to drugs, and she got an opioid addiction when she was in high school. And that was a bad thing, because her mom thought she was pretty much, good, but she got in with some bad friends, and she didn't recognize it as quickly maybe as she could have. Now she's been off drugs for 8 years, and I'm so proud of her. But she went through a really tough time, and that's when the temptations happen, when they're in middle and high school. So you really, really, really have to stay vigilant.
And it's very challenging, because those are the years where they're, again, that balance, they want independence. You want them to have some. Independence is a little bit scary, because now you've put them in a car, they're driving, and the rest of the world, you can't control any of that. So even if they're a good driver, life can impact them in negative ways, in a vehicle or through friendships, or, there's just so many avenues for terrible things.
Yeah.
And there are also avenues for great things. And as a parent, it's hard to know. And so keeping those just opportunities open where they can share, or having, we've gotten away from this a little bit, because actually we probably need this the most now, because we're all busy and have different calendars. But we used to do a family meeting on Sunday nights, because everybody just had crazy obligations. We still do. But this is a perfect example. As the kids have gotten older and managed their own schedules to a degree, there's less management on my part. So a feeling of, okay, they've got it. Probably we should bring those meetings back on Sunday, because it's like, well, you're managing your schedule. What is that? You know, where are you going? And we do talk about that daily, but that is an idea. You know, even just a touch point once a week where you're saying like, hey, what's coming up? So you have an idea. You can offer assistance or support, or
especially if your child is involved in sports or music or something where they're practicing, you know, when they're in a play or something where they have an obligation to do something every day. You need to find a time where you can just touch base with them. And I think that's a really good idea.
Yeah. One other suggestion I'd make too that I've started recently is, so screens are apparent all the time. And as parents, like sometimes you're a little bit happy they have something to do. But then it's like, wait, what are they actually doing? So you have to be intentional about what you're going to do, because I think kids, it's very difficult for them to come up with something to do when they get off a screen. There's some detox that's happening where, you know, they're not being constantly stimulated. So what I've started doing when it makes sense with the timing is before bed at night, we've started to play like Go Fish, the kids and I. And it's such a simple game, and it, you know, so it's just so easy and it doesn't mean anything. But the humor and the interaction that comes out of that, just us sitting on the floor, and the stories or the interactions between them, just, we've been doing this for about 3 weeks. And again, it's not every night, just when it presents an opportunity.
Right.
I've been thinking lately of those missed moments. If I didn't come up with something, some way for us to interact, we wouldn't be doing that at night. They wouldn't be having those interactions. And they're different ages, and, you know, brothers and sisters, and
there's fighting and everything else that happens with brothers and
like,
sisters.
You know, it's like lion cubs. You know, it's like we're on the floor and like, so the card game is just a vehicle to the interaction. So even finding something, you don't have to do it every night, you don't have to do it for extended periods of time, but some way to indirectly interact. So it's not just, okay, what are you doing this weekend? Who are you hanging out with? Those things will naturally come out if you can, you know, just try to find a way to connect like that. So
that's a good idea. Dinners too, you know.
Dinners.
And it's harder with the schedules of people, but if you can just find at least one or two dinners a week where you all sit down and you talk about that kind of thing. I mean, I know it's hard to do. Even if you're eating a pizza, it doesn't have to be mom cooked dinner. It can just be a Chinese food or whatever.
Order it in, or
just to have time to just talk. And the other thing too, and we talked about the kids being able to share, but I think it's important if you're having a trouble as a mother, you're going through a tough situation like I did with my bad boss or a difficult coworker or something, is that you share with your child your emotions that you're having with somebody.
Such a good point.
Because if they understand, hey, mom, here's mom, she's got her job or whatever she's doing, and she's having trouble with a difficult coworker, and they're having trouble with somebody in their class, they can relate to the fact that even though we're adults, we still have problems with other people sometimes. And how do we navigate that? Mom, how are you handling that? Well, I'm trying to do blah, blah, blah. And then they can understand that, you know what, it happens all the way through their life.
Instead of us just telling them what to do in that situation. You know, if you're at odds with somebody in the class, here's what you should do. They can watch us do that. And even watch us have a hard time with it. I'm not really good at that. I'm more of an explainer, you know, that I don't like to, I've talked about this on the show too, like, I'm not like a public emoter, so like I don't cry a lot, and I don't project a lot of vulnerabilities to my kids. I also do not recommend that. So this is something I've discovered about myself as I've gotten older. So I will, to compensate for that, will explain to them that I don't show vulnerability, you know, but that it's healthy and you should. That's much harder to teach that way than to just show the kids, you know, that guess what, I'm human. This is hard, you know. I feel sad or whatever. So we all have opportunity areas. That happens to be one of mine.
Yeah. Well, it's not easy if it's not your normal way of being. You can't fake it either. That's the other thing I learned. I learned that we had a guy in the South. He was a salesman, and we were in the carpet industry, which they had people like Otis, who weighed 400 pounds and wore overalls and spoke, I think, English, but I'm not 100% sure. And this guy tried to be a good old boy, and he was no more a good old boy than I am. And when you're fake, when you aren't authentic self, people know.
Right.
And you may think, oh, I'm doing a really good job of faking it, but they know if you're not being authentic.
Right.
So that's the other thing with your kids, is you try to get them to be as authentic and you be as authentic, so that they can learn, you know, what that is about. Because when you're not, it doesn't work.
No, it doesn't. And then what happens is whatever you're projecting attracts those groups, you know, that kind of person. Doesn't make that kind of person bad, but eventually you'll learn the people you're spending time with, friends or otherwise, just it doesn't sit right. They're not the people you really want to spend time with. And eventually you're going to figure that out. And then it's hard for your life to feel whole if you're not surrounding yourself with people that make you feel whole, you know, because you're projecting something that like you said, isn't authentic.
You have to be authentic. And, you know, the confidence factor, I know that everybody thinks I'm very together and confident and all this, but I struggle my life with being confident. I never thought I would get along with other women, for example, because back in my day, which is older than you, if you were a stay-at-home mom and you were a working mom, there was conflict between the two of which was a better mother. Well, it turns out we're both great mothers.
Yes.
You just have to be authentic to what your situation is. If you want to be a stay-at-home mom, God bless you. You're doing a great job, and I couldn't do it because I needed to work too, but that didn't make me better or worse than you.
Correct.
But I always thought that because I wasn't very confident that I couldn't get along with other women.
Oh, right.
And it turns out I can, and
You
I
can.
do.
Yes.
But I didn't know that, and I was always very uncomfortable sometimes with getting together with other women because I never thought I could do it or be.
Right.
But I've learned. So sometimes, you know, you see this confident woman, and sometimes she's not so confident. So to me, expressing to someone that you're proud of what they're doing, like you with all the things that you're doing, I'm proud of you because I couldn't do all those things. But that doesn't make, it makes you strong, and I'm proud of you. And we have to be proud of each other for what we're able to do and what we're able to take on and experience, because it's very hard. It's very hard to be a parent, you know, be a person, be in groups, be involved. Sometimes it's hard. It's emotionally hard, and we have to recognize that in each other.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that. Thank you. And same, proud of you for the things that you've done. I mean, you've contributed so much to this community. And even when I met you, you know, that confidence thing, I would have had no idea that you didn't feel like that. I think who you are authentically is, you know, I'm attracted to that energy. Like, it's upbeat, it's real. I think your aims are very positive here.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I try. Some days I'm better than others. Some days it's just all comes crashing down. But I think the ability to be able to connect with other people just is so empowering. I told you I do Meals on Wheels, and the people that I see there, they're so grateful for everything that you can do, bringing them a meal, taking out their garbage. The other day, one of the ladies, her dog had poop all over the back of her hiney, so I had to clean that off because she couldn't get down there, and the dog was scared and whatnot. Just something simple like that. She was so grateful because she couldn't do it herself.
Right.
And so the more we can connect with people, just the more real life is.
And I think too, to your point about, you know, being confident and interacting with other women, I think that feeling is so common with women and moms, because we have this complex where we have to do it all. And like we talked about, we don't want to ask for help. Well, if I'm authentically coming to you and I'm struggling, you're going to know I'm not doing it all and I probably need help. Except I don't want you to know that because I want to project that I'm doing it all. And if all the moms are doing that around all the moms, like, what are we doing? You know, and I think if you can show up and maybe you are confident, but if you can be humbly confident, you know, confident in your abilities, but also open to the fact that you're not right about everything. You don't know everything. There's so much to learn just in talking to another mom who's having an individual experience and understanding that you don't know what that was like, and there's much to be learned from somebody else's story. And approaching any group, just understanding maybe you're not the expert and you have this open idea of what you can learn from them and how their experiences have been so different and can contribute to making you, you know, a more maybe confident, complex, dynamic person. That's really the way to maybe do it.
And think of the energy we're wasting, faking it, if you will, that I've got it all together and I've got it, when you know you're not and everybody else is doing that. If we put that energy towards connecting with each other and helping, people love to help you. They do. It makes them feel better and they love to teach you. If you don't know something and you ask somebody, well, what would you do or what about your advice? They love to teach you. Most people do. They're so excited to help you with something you're struggling with.
And people want to feel valuable. So if you have something to offer and somebody needs that, that makes you feel valuable as a person. So we should do more of that.
We should.
Yeah.
We should.
And teach each other.
Yeah.
So, okay, so trying to think if we covered, was there anything we didn't cover? That was a lot.
Yeah, we got a lot done in a short period of time.
This is our nature.
Yes,
Get a lot done
yeah,
in a short period.
we're people that get things done, and that's the other thing is, you know, people are attracted to people that get things done because we all there's so much to do, you know, and there's so much need. It just amazes me how much need there is and how many people need your help.
It feels overwhelming, but you know, if you can do one thing, you're making an impact. So don't be paralyzed by the fact that it's overwhelming. You know, just do one thing, one small thing.
And find something that you're passionate about. And I tell people when they say, well, I don't know what to, I'm retiring, or I want to do something different, but I don't know what to do. If your passion is older people, then find something to do with older people. There's lots of opportunity. If your passion is kids, you can do things with kids. You can volunteer in the classrooms. They're always looking for people to help kids write resumes or to read to kids or to help them, tutor them with some math or some reading. I mean, if it depends on what your passion is, there is something out there for you. There's so many needs. All you have to do is, I tell people, ask me. I'll help connect you up with somebody because we do so many things in our group, but there's so much need, and all you need to do is find something that gives you joy and volunteer in that aspect. And also, if you don't like it, then you change.
Right. Well, that's the thing about volunteering, right? That's a way to test out the things you're interested in and what value you can bring to other people too, without, you know, so much risk in jumping into a career like you thought, research and development.
Yeah. I was a disaster. I mean, because it was the same thing every single day, and I'm like, does it work or doesn't it work? I wanted to like know that. Yeah.
That maybe was a good time to discover that.
It was a good, and learning what you're not good at or not passionate about or something that isn't your thing is just as important. I tell the kids this in school. It's just as important to learn what you're not good at or not passionate about as it is what you are, because those things teach you. God, thank God I didn't get a job in research and development. I'd have been a disaster. And my daughter, she's been in a couple different things, and she had to find her way. And that's what the kids do today, is that, you know, they're in many jobs. For me, I was with the same company a long time. Kids today are not. They're hopping a little bit more, but it's because they want to find their more niche and their more passion.
Yeah.
So it's different today than it was, and that's fine. We just have to all adjust to the new reality of it.
I agree. Okay, so before we wrap up, you've had a lot of wise things to say here. Is there anything we didn't touch on that maybe you want to offer, or do you think we covered most of it?
I think we covered most of it. The most important thing is stay involved with your kids, however much you can, because they really need you, even if they're pushing you away and saying, Mom, you're driving me crazy, whatever. Just keep staying involved. And not only when they're little, but all the way through, even when the kid's 33, which mine is, where she is today. The other thing is just do what you can. There's no judgment as far as, well, this person's in 4 things, well, I'm only in 1. So what? It doesn't matter. Just do what you can and just do the best you can. And know that everybody is struggling. That's probably the biggest thing I didn't realize when I was younger, is that everybody's struggling. I always thought they were all together, but they're not.
No.
And the most important thing, that's okay, because we're human.
That's right.
And it's okay to ask for help. That's the other thing, ask for help, because we're going to have times when you're desperately needing help. And maybe it's just a hug, and maybe it's just going out for coffee with somebody, or having lunch or something, or maybe it's more detailed than that. But you need to be able to ask for help.
I agree.
Those are my big things.
Great words of support, I think. So thank you for coming on.
You're welcome. Thank you for asking me. I was so surprised to have you ask me on your show.
I'm so happy you
You're
came.
so accomplished. I'm so amazed
Lorie,
at you. You are amazing.
Oh, thank you. This was great. I'm so happy you came.
Thank you.
That went so fast.
It did. It did.
Okay. So thank you so much for joining us. Remember to take time to take another perspective to see things, but don't be afraid to hang on to your own. Be resilient, show up even when it's hard. You need it and your kids need it. Continue to pursue your goals, pursue whatever it is that makes you have joy and feel good. And remember, you're not alone. There's about 2 billion of us moms around the world, and we are here for you. Thank you.
Thank you.